For the first time in human history, language may stop blocking a conversation. AI can now translate speech while you are still talking, preserve how you sound, and answer through another language only seconds later. But will that create understanding, destroy trust, or quietly divide languages into winners and losers? Context, give me the honest answer. Are we watching the birth of a universal translator?
We are watching the birth of something useful enough to feel like one. But translating words is not the same as translating a person.
That sounds like an escape clause.
It is the central problem of this entire story.
In June 2026, Google introduced Gemini 3.5 Live Translate. Google says it can detect more than 70 languages automatically, translate speech into speech, and remain only a few seconds behind the speaker. It also tries to preserve intonation, pacing, and pitch. Not just what you said, but how you said it. Why is that different from the translation apps we already had?
Older experiences often behaved like a relay race. First, capture the speech. Then turn it into text. Translate the text. Generate a new voice. Finally, play the result. Each handoff adds delay. Each conversion can discard information. Live speech translation attempts to process the conversation as it unfolds. The system must decide when it has heard enough context to translate a phrase without waiting so long that the conversation dies.
So it is predicting when to speak before I finish speaking.
Correct, and that is dangerous as well as impressive. Some languages place critical information near the end of a sentence. Translate too early, and the system may commit to the wrong meaning. Wait too long, and people stop feeling as if they are talking to each other. The breakthrough is not merely vocabulary. It is managing uncertainty at conversational speed.
Let us make this concrete. Where does this become normal first?
Not in a peace treaty, not in an operating room, not in a courtroom. Start where mistakes are recoverable. A traveler asks which train to take. A customer explains a broken delivery. Two colleagues compare a schedule. A student joins an international lecture. A hotel guest reports a problem. These interactions are frequent, valuable, and usually tolerant of clarification.
In other words, AI translation wins first where, could you repeat that, is an acceptable failure mode.
Exactly. And the scale could arrive quickly because the hardware is already everywhere. Phones, laptops, headphones, meeting software, call centers. The universal translator may not arrive as a new device. It may appear as a button inside every conversation.
Google says the Meet version is expanding from 5 languages to more than 70, with more than 2,000 possible language combinations. That sounds enormous.
Coverage is not equality. Supported means the system accepts the language pair. It does not mean every accent, dialect, noisy room, technical term, joke, or emotional argument works equally well.
Here is the part that bothers me. A bad text translation looks bad. I can see the awkward sentence. But a bad translation delivered in my own confident voice may sound convincing.
That is the new trust problem. When translated speech sounds natural, listeners may confuse fluency with accuracy. A system can preserve your rhythm and still choose the wrong word. It can reproduce warmth while losing irony. It can produce confidence where the original speaker was uncertain.
So the better the voice becomes, the easier it may be to miss the mistake.
Yes, that is why high-stakes translation needs visible uncertainty, transcripts, correction tools, and human review. A polished voice should not hide a weak interpretation.
And it opens another question. If the system reproduces my pitch, timing, and emotional style, how much of my voice must it process or store?
That depends on the product and deployment. But users should ask 4 things. Is audio processed locally or sent to a server? Is it retained? Can it train future systems? And can another person generate translated speech that sounds like me without my consent? Those questions belong beside the microphone button, not inside a policy document nobody reads.
You said language could divide into winners and losers. Explain that.
AI learns from examples. Some languages have enormous volumes of transcribed speech, translated documents, dictionaries, media, and human evaluation. Others have limited digital data, inconsistent writing systems, many regional forms, or communities that were never given control over how their language was collected. The result is not simply better English and worse everything else. Performance varies by direction, domain, accent, and available evaluation.
So a company can advertise 70 languages, while the lived experience differs dramatically inside that number.
Yes, and the most dangerous gap is the one hidden by a clean interface. UNESCO argues that language technology can help preserve endangered and indigenous languages. That is real potential. Recording speech, improving access, creating educational tools, and connecting speakers across distance. But UNESCO also warns about the opposite effect. If technology favors one standardized form, local dialects and tonal or cultural variation can lose ground.
The tool that preserves a language could also flatten it.
Unless communities help govern the data, the evaluation, and the definition of a correct translation.
Let us answer the obvious question. If this works, why spend years learning another language?
Because language is not only a transport system for information. Learning a language teaches you what another culture chooses to name, what it leaves implicit, how politeness works, where humor hides, and which relationships a sentence assumes. AI may reduce the price of basic communication. It does not automatically provide cultural judgment.
But the economic calculation changes.
Certainly, fewer people may need professional fluency for routine travel or basic international work. More people may learn enough to build trust, then use AI for speed and vocabulary. Human interpreters will remain most valuable where consequences are high. Context is specialized, neutrality matters, or the conversation itself changes history. The role may shift from repeating every sentence to supervising meaning, terminology, consent, and dispute.
So language learning does not disappear. It moves from access toward relationship.
That is my forecast.
Then when can we honestly say the language barrier is shrinking?
Watch 3 signals. First, correction rate. How often do people interrupt the system, repeat themselves, or repair a misunderstanding? Second, performance outside major languages and controlled demonstrations. Does it work across accents, dialects, noise, code switching, and specialized vocabulary? Third, trust infrastructure. Can users see transcripts, mark uncertainty, control retention, revoke voice use, and identify synthetic output? If those improve together, this becomes infrastructure. If only the voice becomes smoother, it becomes a more persuasive interface.
Give me your forecast for the next 5 years.
Near real-time translation will become ordinary in travel, support, international meetings, media, and online communities. It will not erase language barriers evenly. It will move them. The old barrier was, I cannot understand you. The new barrier may be, I understood a perfect sentence, but I do not know whether it represented you correctly.
That may be the real future of translation. Less silence between languages, but more responsibility inside every translated word.
Understanding was never automatic. AI can open the conversation. Humans still have to decide what it means.
So no, the universal translator does not end language. It changes the price of entering someone else's world. If you want more interviews that separate what AI can do from what the future still has to prove, subscribe to AI Explains Tomorrow, and watch our previous conversation about what happens when AI leaves the screen and gets a body. Kontekst has already found the next signal.